Steve is on point to follow these apprentices throughout their high school career. So I'm going to ask Steve to talk with you just a minute about some of the things he's doing right now. We're in the implementation phase. And so Steve is on the ground working with folks like Linda Sullivan, Steve Cromer from West Georgia Technical College, as we get the final pieces in place so that apprentices can start end of next week. We've got a few days before this gets going. Steve?
Yes, first thing I would like to say is that if you have a strong work-based learning program to start with, at the end of the day, these are high school students. So work-based learning can be the vehicle, the transition device, the kind of monitor, shepherd to help these students make it through the system. But you have to have a strong work-based learning program. It has to be flexible. I recommend you have a year-long work-based learning program. We don't stop for the summer because nobody else does. So all of our partners that I'm partnering with, we've continued to work on this from day one and work together to get that done. And I was, like it lends to collaboration, like Steve and Linda and I just had a big fight, a productive discussion about scheduling some classes, and we understood that they were talking about hours one way and I was talking about it another, and at the end of the meeting said, oh, well, this is good now, because now we see what we got to do to get this done. So
Steve, that's a part of this, that we have to translate language across all these different partners who are involved. We don't all speak the same language.
Exactly. And
Steffi had to translate it into English.
And then I've really been amazed at our partnership because everybody works so well together. Nobody's trying to get their one thing done above anybody else. We're all trying to build a program that's going to work for everybody. And so that's been the amazing part of this so far.
So you're going to track these apprentices all through high school. And what does that mean? How will you track them? How will you know that they're proceeding appropriately and that they're having success?
Well, the students, for one, will graduate from high school. They'll graduate with a Move On When Ready diploma. In addition to that, they're going to go through all the way through the German apprenticeship curriculum and be certified as a German apprentice. And then they will also leave with either a diploma or a degree from a technical college. And so all of those have different units. Some of those can overlap and share. And my job would be to make sure that they get as far as they can through the supplemental ones, but definitely make it through the ones that are required and get them as far as they can and monitor that progress.
Do y'all have questions for Steve before he leaves? He's going to have to head out here pretty soon. There are microphones, I think, on either side of the room, and we would love for you to speak your question into a microphone so we can record it. Any questions for Steve? All right. Steve, thank you. Martin Plyer, welcome back. Last night, flew in from Germany just for this presentation.
Yeah. No, I came back from a promotional tour in Europe for this program.
As part of the promotional tour?
Yeah, with the governor.
You welcomed Governor Nathan Deal to the headquarters of Grenzebach in Hamler in Bavaria.
Yeah.
And you allowed Larry Alford to hack into the video where he placed Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech as the background music. Talk with us, Martin, just for a minute about the vision for this program and how it started. I mean, you've been on point to drive the development of this in the last 4 years.
Yeah, going back 4 years, probably a little longer. I've been thinking what we can do at Grenzebach to still grow our talents and to make sure that we're ready for the future. At that time, I had an average age of 47. Now it's 48 in my shop. A tenure of 15 years. Now it's probably 16, 17 years. And had to face a lot of good talents probably retiring very soon. And no way to hire this talent off the street. Not possible with, even with intensive training in our facility. We made really bad experience in welding. We hired a temp, and we tried, to groom him into what we expect from him. It didn't work out. So, well, I turned myself over here to the CEC, actually to the school system, and talked to Mark and Dr. Steve Barker, here, our superintendent of schools, and said, why wouldn't we set up something similar that we have in Germany that works, an apprenticeship program? And the great thing was they were on board right away. And having here the CEC, it's very similar to a vocational school that we would have in Germany that will help with the technical part of the training, with the basics of all that. And the CEC and Dr. Steve Humphrey, they're really open to work with us on we called it in the very beginning already apprenticeship program. Actually, in retrospective, we now have the real apprenticeship program. I would call it an intern, maybe co-op program, where we had students from CEC, seniors and juniors now, that worked at Grenzebach in different disciplines, in different areas, and started to get familiar with the CEC and with how we can groom talents in future. So we started with the engineering department and had some talents over from the CEC that worked with us for a year, and then now we're in the 4th year doing that. Last year, it's 2 years ago, we hired one on in the shop in welding, the one that I just mentioned, and we were really surprised with the proficiency of this young man. He was at that time 16 when he came working for us and as an apprentice intern.
He had already finished a technical college certificate in welding from West Georgia Technical College while here at CEC, yeah.
Yeah. So he knew quite a bit about welding, and he was well received with our staff. And again, I mentioned 47, I guess these guys there are more than 50 years. Some of them have more than 30 years experience in welding, and they were really pleased with his experience. So he worked as an apprentice for about a year. During that time, we have regular trainings and tests from our welding engineer in Germany, because as Grenzebach, we sell Grenzebach quality all over the world, and to make sure that's always the same, we certify our welders according to a German standard. And of course, this young talent had to go through that training too, and the test at the end. And I was really, I should not be surprised, but I was surprised because he aced all the tests, and one of my experienced welders, they did not do so well. So you can see the quality you get out of a program like this, and it was a no-brainer for us to hire him right after he finished high school. He finished in May. We hired him the month after. More or less it was seamless for him. He stayed with us. He's still with us. And the only bummer there was that when we hired him on, he was 17. He couldn't drive a forklift, and he couldn't operate the cranes, the overhead cranes we have to lift equipment and material. So
Martin, there are those here who don't know why that's the case. Could you explain why he couldn't drive a forklift?
Yeah, because there's OSHA rules that forbid people that are under 18 to work on a crane or drive a forklift. And being a German, that's just ridiculous. Especially knowing here in the US, if you're 16, you can buy the biggest, meanest truck, but you cannot drive a forklift. I still don't get that. But we tabled that, and with the help of Roy and others, we will try to push OSHA to a more, common sense there. But it'll take years, and I'm okay with that now, I guess. But it was interesting to see this young student being integrated in our shop, and he's still doing really well. So with that in mind, and that as a preset, I think it's very important that you have a program set up like this before, that you can have the experience with the young people in your shop before you go into this full-blown apprenticeship program, because that's a total different animal. It's a lot more commitment from the school, from the student, and from the workplace, because you got to put in a trainer in the school, at the workplace, and they have to really diligently work on this curriculum that we brought from Germany. But I think we did everything we could to set this program up for success. And these were just two examples that I wanted to mention. And we still have the students from CEC not going through the apprenticeship program, but in an intern relationship. We have one in the electrical department, and we have one in the safety department right now. So we still continue this.
Martin, describe Grenzebach's ranking in the hierarchy of safety certification in the state of Georgia.
Well, safety is very, very important to us. And this has nothing to do with the apprenticeship program in general. We want to make sure that our employees come home as they come to work, you know, as safe with all their limbs, with everything on them, and, you know, that don't get injured. That's very important. So we made sure years ago that we go beyond what is requested by OSHA. OSHA actually has a program called SHARP, where you can certify your company to a little higher standard that they ask. There's actually a benefit to that. They will not come for unannounced checks on you. That's the benefit. On the other hand, you have to go through an ISO process similar to an ISO certification and make sure that you have a really safe environment. We had that set up now since 3 years. We just got recertified last year. You have to do that every 3 years. We're actually one of 18 companies in Georgia and 2 here in Coweta County that have the certification.
So only 18 in the entire state of Georgia have that level of certification?
Yeah.
Okay.
And SHARP is for smaller companies, less than 250 employees. For a bigger company, it's called BPP, so there's probably more in that. But for smaller companies, we're one of 18 in the state.
Okay. So Martin, you're not a large company by numbers, but you manufacture around the world. I think there may be some people here, and maybe this is a question for Larry Alford, but Larry, there may be some people here who really haven't been around 21st century manufacturing. What's it like today?
Wow.
And you're going to have to get real close to that microphone, yeah.
Well, probably most of the people in the room have been, but it's certainly not what it was like when I was starting out, when you could actually work at 16 and do anything.
And you were an engineer in industry.
I was an engineer, right? And certainly, you know, the requirements from the customers, the quality, the on-time delivery, the expectations of what manufacturers have to deliver has gone up dramatically. The precision in which manufacturers have to operate. And so therefore, you've also seen manufacturers improve their operations to a remarkable extent, not just implementing the new technologies, you know, computerizing, you know, the ERP systems that control things, but an enormous move to become, I guess in lean vernacular, it's eliminate the waste in operations. So when you go into a manufacturer now, it's a very precise operation. Typically very organized, very clean, very tight when you think about the connections from one process to the other. So it's a very different place than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, Martin, with that, do you want to start advancing the slides and we can walk through the presentation? And Jake's got the clicker here. So
yeah. I think the first part, Steffi will take over that part, and I'll start with the introduction of the GCAT program. So I will just hand it over to Steffi.
Okay.
Wonderful. Okay, I don't even see the slides. Beep. I just want to welcome everyone again. Hi, Cassie. We haven't talked. We emailed, just on the phone. I just want to explain the German-American Chamber, or the German foreign chamber system, a little bit, because the first question always is, why is the German-American Chamber involved in this? Well, you have to understand, in Germany, our local chamber system, we have 80 within Germany, actually 79 at this point, one merged. The German chamber system organizes, operates, examines, speaks on behalf of the companies for each and every vocational training program in Germany. So we have 350 vocations in Germany, or trades, that are being taught. The Chamber of Commerce, the local one, the Munich, the Stuttgart, the Hamburg, speaks on behalf of these companies, and they examine legally by law these apprentices. So how the German Foreign Chamber is set up is we have 130 offices in 90 countries worldwide, and within our locations worldwide, we are the official representative of industry and trade. You see a lot of bilateral chambers all over the US. You see the French American, the British American, the Swedish American, and on the side, or a separate office, they have a trade commissioner. That's the official representative of that respective country's industry. In Germany, we're set up where we're subsidized by the German Ministry of Economics in the respective country we're in, and we're representing the German industry. So with that being said, we have 3 offices, or main offices as we call them here in the United States. We have Chicago, New York, Atlanta. We're divided by regions. Obviously the US is big. So Chicago covers the Midwest. They have a branch office in Detroit. New York covers the Northeast. They do have a branch office in San Francisco. They also cover the West Coast, as well as Philadelphia. And then us in Atlanta, we cover the 11 states that I said earlier, and we have a branch office in Houston, Texas, and Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So with that being said, companies like Martens, Grenzebach, know from their German system the chamber is in charge. So what he didn't say earlier is how he stalked me 2 years ago, saying, I need this curriculum, I need this translated, we want to start this here. So what we can do is we provide these curriculum in the English language. We help, the companies guide the schools, or, whatever educational system or organization is part of it through this process. Because as we said at the very beginning, when you talk about apprenticeships, we're not all talking the same language, and that's something very important, but I guess we'll go into that a little later. So as I said before, by law in Germany, the chambers are in charge of organizing and examining these programs. So we're here in the United States as well for the companies that want this.
So Steffi, do you mean that educators don't develop this curriculum? This is developed by companies?
That is correct. The industry is writing the curriculum, not the school or the college.
And that is by law, and that is governed by you. So if people want to start a German apprenticeship program in America, they have to go through you. You are responsible for those programs around the world.
That is correct. If they want to have a true German-American, German-American apprenticeship program that wants a quality stamp, that they want us to certify, there are great programs out there, but if you want that quality of a program, they have to go through us, yes.
Martin, why is the German certification important? Why is that important to industry?
It's so important because we know exactly what we get at the result. We know that from Germany over the years already.
100 years of experience.
At least, yeah. So it's very easy. We picked industrial mechanics. So if I want to hire an industrial mechanic and a young talent comes and has the certification from the chamber, I know exactly what training, what tests he went through, and the grades he has on there. I exactly know how he performed in the different disciplines. So it's a really important, rigorous quality information for the employer.
So Grenzebach, Germany, has these apprentices who come through the German system, and you know that you can send them to Grenzebach, China, or Grenzebach, America, or wherever in the world, because you know what they can do.
Exactly.
So if you get those kinds of apprentices developed here in America, would you send them elsewhere?
Absolutely. I would definitely send them to Germany.
You would send them anywhere in the world?
No.
Okay. So not only do these young people get opportunities here, they get opportunities worldwide.
Actually, to come back to the example I had before with the welder, even he didn't pass through the apprenticeship program. We're sending him in August for a month to Germany to work there. So we're actually doing this already. but it will be even more transparent with the numbers and the results that we will get out of this program.
Okay. All right. Steffi.
Yeah, so nationwide, as Martin said, if Grenzebach has a final exam in industry mechanics, the same exam is going to be held at Airbus in Hamburg. You know, it's at the same time, it's the same content, it's the same questions. So as Martin said, the curriculum, and I brought some examples here, it's the same nationwide regardless of, you know, the product of your company. So moving on, just a little bit more information on, click. The next one. You can just click all the way through. Thank you. So these programs are set up 2 to 3.5 years, and about 70–80% of it is being taught in the company and 20 to 30% in school. So these apprentices are 3 to 4 days of the week are within the company and only 1 to 2 days in the school. This was something of the challenges that we ran into here because there's nothing like it, so we had to tweak, you know, with the help of everyone, the schedules, and this doesn't have to be necessarily, you know, full day at work. It can be half day at work, half day at school. However, you know, it works for, you know, the respective area where you want to set this up.
So Steffi and Martin, how much time did we save these people here? How much time did Cindy McGowan and Kenny Adkins and Linda Sullivan and Steve Cromer and Steve Humphrey and Larry Alford and Irene Munn and Roy Bowen and all of us who've been involved in this, how much time did we save these people in this room today if they want to do industrial mechanics?
If you want to do an industrial mechanic apprenticeship program in Georgia, if you have a technical college system in your area and you have a college and career academy, you can just copy it and start right away. I would not recommend to do this just right away. As I mentioned before, you should have some experience with work-based learning. You should have some experience with working together with industry as educators. But if you have that, anytime.
We've given them at least 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years that they don't have to do. That's pretty good. Pretty cool. Thank y'all for doing that.
You're welcome.
That's pretty cool.
Send the check
Yeah.
later. Yeah. Just some more facts on apprenticeships in Germany if we go to the next slide. So as I said before, we have 350 occupations in Germany that we have standardized curriculums for. So about 40% of the German youth is training in these programs. That makes it 1.5 million per year. They start at the same age, Martin already said, they're 15, 16, sometimes 17 when they start in these programs, and about 500,000 German companies are training. If we go to the next slide, what does that lead to? It leads to the lowest or almost lowest youth unemployment rate in any industrialized nation. We're at 7.8% at this point. I looked up the US, I think it's at 10.3, 10.4 if I'm not mistaken. Always depends on how you gather the numbers, but only Japan and Norway are lower. But I mean, it brought us through 2008, 2009 actually, you know, the workforce that we had through the recession there.
Yeah, even while the German rate was much lower than 10%, I think it got up to maybe 8% or so during the Great Recession worldwide. The American rate was in the 15+% range.
I saw 17, 18 at one point,
yeah.
Just some of the benefits, and Martin can speak to that way better than I can in theory. As he said, you build your own workforce. You know what you have. A lot of times question arises, what about loyalty? What about me spending all this money on this apprentice and then for $1 more they go across the street and work for another company? You've had that employee within your company for 3 years. You build them up, you mold them, you infuse them with your company values and morals. they're not going to go anywhere. There's studies out there. There's Apprenticeship 2000 actually in North Carolina. That was the first one that started in 1996 in a cluster solution as well, where 8 companies came together and taught mechatronics. 90% of those graduates of the 2000 class, which was the first class, are still with the company they trained. They're the trainers, actually, of these younger students these days. So the loyalty that you build among the students that you train, that's your ROI right there. For the young people, you learn a skill. It's always phenomenal when you ask a young person, what do you want to be? And they say, I'll go to Georgia Tech. No, what do you want to be? I go to Clemson. No, what do you want to be? And they don't know. They know they want to go to a certain school. They have no idea of a career or a skill set that they want to learn. So this actually, gives them a career. There's a great saying in Germany that I stole from someone way smarter than me. But they said, we don't train you for a job, we train you for a career. And actually the new incoming CEO of Volkswagen, and I forgot his name, here in the US, he was an apprentice at Volkswagen. So it is a career. A lot of, you can go on to a 4-year college. It's not the end of the road.
CEO of Daimler was recently,
Yes.
came from the apprenticeship program.
Setcha was, was an apprentice. So, but we can go into that later. I think the whole mindset or shift of mindset that has to change here in the U.S., that's a whole nother can of worms that we're opening right there. The challenges that we run to, and again, I have more of a bird's eye view. I'm not one county, one city, one state. How decentralized everything is for us. Germany is way smaller, and it probably takes you in a radius of 15 to 20 minutes to get to the next school. Here, it can take you about an hour. Sometimes the companies are spread out so far. We're not as lucky in every state as we are here in Coweta County, where actually, you can all come together in a more condensed area. All the state-by-state, community-by-community approach, as we just laid out, it's unified. The curriculum is unified. Grades are unified. Credits are unified. That doesn't happen much, that you have a community like this pulling together. There's still very few public-private partnerships out there. We're obviously trying to foster this, but there has to be more where the companies are also incentivized, to go into these programs. Higher cost is actually not the case here. We can talk about that later. And then it comes to our biggest challenge. The learning a trade is uncool. If you don't go to college, you're not going to make it. That's our biggest challenge that we're running into, changing the mindsets of the parents. It's a great program, but little Johnny is going to go to Georgia Tech. Well, as I said, the distance between company and colleges, but these are just, again, from a bird's eye view, the challenges that we, as a chamber, where we want to grow more partnerships that we have, like here, across the Southeast, that's what we're running into.
Martin, you brought Miriam from Grenzebach, Germany, to talk with us about the Industrial Mechanics Apprenticeship Program. Miriam's about 5'3", weighs about 90 pounds. And Miriam went through this program in Germany.
Yes.
Did it stop Miriam from going on to become an engineer?
Absolutely not. Actually, she was inspired by that. What she told me is when she was going to school, she loved math, physics, and all that. What's a little untypical for a young woman there, but she decided she wants to go into an apprenticeship program. So she went through the industrial program in Germany, and after seeing what an industrial mechanic does, she decided she wants to move on and wants to become a mechanical engineer. And while she was here, she spent actually in Germany, it's mandatory to spend at least half a year in industry working while you're at college, and that's what she did here in the US. So she went on after the industrial mechanic apprenticeship and I think she already got her bachelor's, and she's working on her master's now.
Great.
Yeah, I just, you know, these people are way more important than I am, but I brought more information, and I have all this in digital form. So again, I brought some curricula. We have a quarterly U.S.-wide newsletter that all the chamber offices organize together or we put out together. I have the press release here from the GCAT signing back in May. I have the categories here under which the German chamber system certifies these programs, all the criteria of the different programs that need to be in place. There is a MOU that I brought. Irene, I don't know if you wanted to talk about that, the one that was signed in June 2015 between the Department of Labor and the German Ministry of Economics. That was a big push and big help for all of our initiatives as well. And then more in-depth information about what the German vocational training system is about, and it's all in English.
Martin, let's go on to the next slide.
Yeah. Well, what we did with all that preset, we said we want to start an industrial mechanic apprenticeship here in the U.S. And actually, you know, we have such a good experience here in Coweta County. Why don't we want to do it here? We came up with a taggy name called GCAT, Georgia Consortium of Advanced Technical Training. And
actually, I think we had some influence from the German chamber. Steffi, what are these groups being called around the United States?
Well, our Chicago office started ICAT, the Illinois Consortium for Advanced Technical Training, and we thought that's great. We'll just do that in every state. So this was the first industrial mechanic cluster here in the U.S. That they set up in Illinois. So we thought since we're industrial mechanic cluster, we just call it GCAT.
Now, the students in Illinois, Martin, they start at age 15, right?
No. They start when they're done with high school, so 18, 19, and that was very important for our program. GCAT is for high school students. We do the real German apprenticeship program that starts with 15, 16-year-old students. That's very important because you want to groom them as early as possible. And what we see as experience from Germany, between 16 and 18, and 19, there is quite a big difference if you get an 18, 19-year-old into a program versus a 16 or 15-year-old, even sometimes 14-year-olds. It really depends when they're born in the year. But it's a lot easier. It makes more sense to groom them into what we want to train the skill into when they're younger. So the need here was for industrial mechanic, electricians, mechanics, and we decided on industrial mechanic because it covers a little bit of both. Our partners in GCAT, they also had the same issues like I described from Grenzebach, and we found another German company, EGO, here in the county, and 3 American companies, and I'll get through that later. And I was really surprised and actually happy to see 3 Japanese companies joining in our program too. Again, they all had the same issues, aging workforce, very hard to find skilled mechanics. They want to use that in the maintenance department in maintaining their high-end machines and even building machines. So very tough to find it. Same goal more or less to start that with, with industrial mechanic. So we went together here with the school system, with the CEC, with the technical college system of Georgia, because we wanted to make sure it's possible to copy that all over the state. It would not have made sense to start this only here in Coweta County, because then you don't have the effect that we want to have at the end, that we want to develop a pipeline of skilled labor throughout the state that would make the whole state more competitive and would give us, even as a smaller company, the chance to tap into a bigger pool of educated workforce.
So because West Georgia Tech and the Technical College System of Georgia work together, and because the Technical College System of Georgia Board approved a couple of the certificates in this to suffice for the SB2 graduation, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Because that was done, Coastal Pines can go back home and they can pick it up off the shelf.
Correct.
Southern Crescent can go back home and they can pick it up off the shelf. It's already done, already
Correct.
approved.
Yeah. If you want to go for the industrial mechanic, take it as it is, and you're ready to go. That's why we said we have to do it from a state level and not just the local college level here. So who was involved? We had really great support from the Lieutenant Governor, and especially here, Irene. We could not have done the whole thing without her support, because there were some roadblocks before we started that 2-3 years ago, legally, that had to be taken away, and we'll get into that a little further on. Well, thank you again for that support. German-American Chamber, of course, as a German company, that's the only place to go to get a curriculum, to get input in technical trainings. The technical college system of Georgia. And again, that was very important to us, that we don't just start with the West Georgia Technical College, don't want to downplay West Georgia Technical College. They're a very important part in this program here locally, but if we wouldn't have done it with the technical college system, it would not have been that easy. So we started right on the top, and interestingly, the technical college system really loved the idea. They even installed an apprenticeship coordinator in their system now because of the efforts we put into that. Central Education Center is the spot where everything comes together. The school system, the West Georgia Technical College, and the employers. That's where everything gets molded together. And we're really fortunate to have CEC here with all the experience over the years, over 16 years now, working together with industry, working together with the technical college system, and having more or less all the resources ready to start this program here. West Georgia Technical College, of course, the technical college here in our area that we would work with anyways with technical education. And a lot of programs being co-hosted here at CEC, what makes it so convenient for high school students to get into the skill sets early on. And early on is what I always try to repeat. Get them early. The earlier you get the students, the better it will be at the end for the result of the skill set you will train. And then the industrial consortium with the industry here. Grenzebach, as we started that with EGO, the other German company, Yamaha, Keisan, Yokogawa, Winpack, Kawasaki, and Groovepin. These are the companies that started GCAT together with us, and we'll also train apprentices. Actually, we will have 9, maybe 10 that will start in 2 weeks. The Coweta County Development Authority, it's very important because they helped us to bring together all the industry that had the same issues, that worked with the Coweta County Development Authority. The Newnan Chamber of Commerce, also an integrated part of that, because bringing together the input of industry. Actually, the Coweta County Development Authority and the Chamber, very important part here at CEC, bringing the input of industry and keeping everybody straight what industry wants. Georgia Tech with Larry and the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And I also want to mention Roy and his team from GAM, the Georgia Association of Manufacturers, that helped lobbying the laws that were necessary. And without them, and the whole team I just mentioned, it would not have been possible. So
when Roy gets the OSHA rule changed, we're going to put Georgia Association of Manufacturers up there at the top.
That's the party when I will pay the beer for. Well, now let's come back to what we had to change, and that was Senate Bill 2. And I would like to refer it to Irene, what Senate Bill 2 is and, how we got to that.
Sure. Thank you very much. And on behalf of Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle, I want to again also say how wonderful it is for all these communities to be here. Before I talk about Senate Bill 2, I'm remiss to not go on and on about Casey Cagle for just a moment, if you'll indulge me. Just everybody in this room, you guys need to know that Casey Cagle is fully behind Georgia CAT. He's fully invested in this, and he truly truly wants to see the true Georgia CAT model be replicated in other places around the state. And if you move forward with this, know that Casey Cagle will be standing as a partner with you, no different than standing as a partner with Coweta County. He's come down here, he's met with the families, he's met with the companies. We're hosting on August the 2nd at the Capitol the sign-in ceremony for the first 8 apprentices. He is just fully invested because he believes this model or this opportunity for our high school students are truly something we should give them as an opportunity for their success. It's not for everybody, but it sure is something that our businesses, our manufacturers need, and our students need also. So we are very appreciative of the hard work of Coweta County, of West Georgia Technical College. This really couldn't have happened without you guys sitting at the table too, and also the Technical College System of Georgia. I think we're probably going to get to the Georgia CAT partnership, so I'll go back to Senate Bill 2. I hope I get to talk a little bit more about, the future and what's coming next, but to just stay on task here with Senate Bill 2, every college and career academy here in this room knows that the Lieutenant Governor, when there's a need of our college and career academies, we stand up to respond to try to fill that need. And we realized quickly that dual enrollment needed another opportunity or another oomph to it where a student could fully focus on their post-secondary work while they're in high school.
Irene, how many college and career academies do we have now across the state of Georgia?
Today we have 39. Is that right?
39?
Is it 30? It's either, I should know this. It's either 37 or 39. No, it's 38. 38? It's 38 college and career academies.
And where was the first one?
The first one was here in Coweta County 16 years ago. And it really was the model, and I say all the time, the Lieutenant Governor is a great politician. When he sees a good thing, he steals it. So we saw a good thing here in Coweta County, and he realized that this model really was something that brings communities together with the partnerships that provide success for the economy. Secondary, post-secondary, and the business community, sitting at the table over what is the direction, what are the needs of the business community in that area, and how can we do a pipeline of talent, and I love using that term talent as opposed to workers or students. It is truly talent and how we develop that talent so they are seamless, not into post-secondary, but seamless all the way into the workforce. So he is committed to this, and now can I talk about Senate Bill 2? So Senate Bill 2 really came out of our college and career academies. It was the knowledge that this idea of dual enrollment, this one-off, English for English, math for math, when you're going to a technical college, it's very hard to figure out how you take that third year of math and equate it to industrial mechanics or science. It's the folks at the state level just had a hard time doing that. So why are we doing that anyway? Let's just get the 8 basic courses that a high school student needs, 2 math, 2 science, 2 English, 2 social studies, and then allow that student to fully focus on post-secondary, whether it's a TCC certificates, a diploma, or associate degree. And when they complete all that work, looking back, you can also grant them a high school diploma. It's all the common sense in the world. The General Assembly agreed. The governor signed it into law. And so in 2015, the Senate Bill 2 passed. And we have a number of, I'm looking at all you guys. You probably have a lot of Senate Bill 2 kids out there that are getting their high school diploma with a real completion of post-secondary work. But just so y'all know, we pushed Senate Bill 2, but it was always in the back of the mind of Casey Cagle that Senate Bill 2 was to allow for the German apprenticeship. It's to help all these other programs, but he knew that we couldn't do the true German model apprenticeship if we did not have Senate Bill 2. So honestly, this was the direction that he definitely wanted us to be moving in, and really thrilled that Coweta County stepped up to the plate with our partners to make this happen.
And where were you in 2014 in fall, Irene?
I got the privilege, what sealed the deal for me, and I would say that anybody who gets the opportunity to truly go over to Germany to see their apprenticeship program, it's nice to hear Steffi talk about it, but to literally be over there and visualize it, it really hit home to me that the mindset and the on this PowerPoint where you see 75% of the time is at the company and 25% is at the school. That is really what it is. And there are so many benefits to that model from a public policy perspective. Mostly is that the companies are footing the bill for the equipment and the training of our students. Instead of the state having to pay for equipment, all of that equipment is there at the employer site. That is a huge savings when you think about it. If we can put more of our kids learning on the job instead of replicating or attempting to replicate, because when you guys know as your local school systems or technical colleges, once you purchase a piece of equipment, you own it for what, about 10 years before you can even think about putting in a new piece of equipment. Manufacturers are turning their equipment over as needed by their product and what their needs are. So this apprenticeship model has our students and our talent truly learning on the exact equipment that they're going to be working in, instead of trying to replicate that in a school site. So that just alone is a real example of what it why this is a really good model and a good opportunity. It's not the only opportunity, but it's, and we're doing a lot of great work out there, but this truly is something that we need to stand up here in Georgia. The other thing that hit home for me when I got to go to Germany was going and visiting the Ford plant in Cologne. Great place, good beer. Martin was my tour guide the whole time. He literally told me every restaurant and what to order. It was great. It was wonderful. But it was there in Cologne. They have every year 250 apprenticeship opportunities open up for 15-year-olds in this Ford program. 3,000 15-year-olds are competing for 250 slots. That was amazing to me, to think of the quality of student that is going into those programs for Ford in Cologne, Germany. And I look forward to the idea that we are going to have students when they're 15 years old standing up and presenting themselves in a manner where they're competing for an awesome opportunity like these apprenticeships that they have here. That is just a mindset shift for our students to actually compete for something that's so important. And I also hope you understand, and I hope the Lieutenant Governor's weight behind this really brings to mind the importance of doing this for our Georgia's economy. Y'all know that manufacturing is critical to the success of our economy, and if we don't do our educational opportunities different for that talent, we're not going to be able to keep up with the needs of our manufacturers in this state. And that is detrimental for the manufacturers, it's detrimental for Georgia's economy, and it's detrimental for our communities. So it really is an awesome opportunity that all of us together can do some transformative things that help everybody in this state.
So Martin, talking about that competition, that was something you wanted to make sure that we replicated here. And in this first cohort, we had 20 qualify. We're selecting 9.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important for the talent that will come into this program not to be given away. This is something you have to work for. We made sure it's, again, taken everything that we know from Germany, copied everything there. We put all these talents through an interview process like everybody else that we would hire on. And so it is really a competitive situation here too.
Yeah. Steve Cromer, let me ask you to come up to the microphone just a minute. Steve Cromer is the Senior Director of Advanced Manufacturing at West Georgia Technical College. Steve, you recently got back from Germany, viewing the German apprenticeship system up close. Give us your thoughts about the German apprenticeship system.
Thank you, Mark. Every time I'm asked this question, I remember something that I learned while I was in Germany. One of the big takeaways that I had from my observance of the apprenticeship program there was when we went to the labs and the classrooms, there were very few chairs. there were very few desks, and that's because they don't sit and listen to an instructor for an hour talk about theory. Everything they learn is work-based, it's project-based. And students have to communicate with each other. They communicate with their instructor to the point where when a student asks an instructor a question, the instructor does not immediately answer the question. Here in America, if a student raises their hand, the instructor basically runs to that student to answer the question, because the instructor is many times fearful that if they don't give immediate response, they'll be turned into the front office for not giving them immediate response. And that's just the truth of it. In Germany, in the German apprenticeship program, they encourage the students to think critically and to think on their own and to think within a team. So they do not answer their questions immediately. They tell them, we've covered this material, you give me the answer. They have to collaborate with their fellow students. They have to think about what they've learned, and they have to come up with an answer. Right or wrong, they have to come up with an answer. And then they will talk about it as a group and with their instructor to determine, is that an effective answer? Everything there is project-based learning. They do not have grade books like we do. The grade books there are an evaluation of an individual student. It's not an A, B, C, D, or F so much. Everything there is an evaluation of a student. The instructor's evaluation of how well that student understands that material and how well they performed in the lab, not how well they took a test. Testing is really on the low side of the objective. And that's something we, in the U.S., we do really well. We cover material and we give tests and take tests really, really good here. But that's not helping these employers. And in the German apprenticeship model, they learn by doing. They put the tools and equipment in the students' hands. They force them to think critically. They force them to think on their own. And they force them to build confidence. And by doing work-based learning and project-based learning, it instills that confidence in those students. We were given a presentation by students who were 15 and 16 years old, and if I had not known, if I gone in that room with the blindfold on, I would have absolutely swore those students were 25 and 30 years old. The maturity level is unbelievable. And there were so many takeaways I have from my trip to Germany. I can tell you that we're going to immediately implement, beginning fall semester, project-based learning in our programs. We're still going to have our grade book, but it's going to be an evaluative grade book, not for test taking. It will be performance-based grading, so that when we turn as a student over to the industry is going to know not only did they learn in the classroom, but they performed, so that on day one they're productive. So that's my
Thank you, Steve. Martin, I remember when you brought your some of your HR executives here from Germany. They looked in our technical labs, and their comment was, wow, this reminds us of the kind of thing that we would do in Germany, but we don't understand why it's all here in the school, because in Germany it's out in the companies. Can you speak to that? Irene was talking about that.
Yeah, it's very critical that, of course, you get some hands-on experience on machines and on tools, but not so much at the technical schools, at the vocational schools in Germany. They have some, sure, but all the companies probably have more modern, more up-to-date equipment that they replenish whenever it's necessary. And most of the hands-on training on more expensive machinery is all done at the workplace, nothing done at the vocational school. Sure, they have some basic training and they will have tools and machines there too, but the interesting part is that most of the bigger companies, and Grenzebach, I wouldn't consider us bigger, but we also have a training center that is dedicated for apprenticeships. So we train all the different technical apprenticeship educations in Germany in a dedicated building that's separated from the rest of the manufacturing. So all the talents that go into that, they have the machinery there, and I was just there 2 weeks ago, and they have pretty new machinery there, and if they have to work on a more complex machine, they'll just go out in the manufacturing floor and can work there. And it's actually not work, it's actually training. Get the skill that you need to operate the machine and to solve the problem that you would have to.
So Martin, you mean while they're at the company, they're not always producing a product that leads to a profit for the company?
Absolutely not. It's not the focus of the apprenticeship program to have a cheap worker, cheap laborer that you would put somewhere to build widgets and to fill in for somebody that is sick. Definitely not. Of course, in the third year, you can use them in projects really on productive parts, but the plan is to train them on a skill, to let them have a real good understanding of how to manufacture, how to produce parts. And you can't do that in a manufacturing environment. You have to do that at the manufacturing place to have all the experts and all the tools and machinery around there, but not on the floor, in more or less on the line. Definitely not.
Okay, all right. Let's move on through. Yeah, Steffi.
No,
Yeah.
I just want to speak to the testing again and exams. Any of these German programs have 2 exams, one intermediate, or 2 tests, one intermediate and one final. And the written one is anywhere between 30 to 50% going into the grade. The other 50 to 70% are projects.
Yeah, yeah. So Steffi, when we did the work here with the Technical College System of Georgia, West Georgia Tech, and the employers, you had to take all of that work and you had to put it in your analysis and determine whether the student had enough hands-on time working in the industry to qualify to sit for the examination. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. Actually, when the curriculum and everything came together and the schedule, we sent it to Germany. I don't have that technical knowledge, and had them verify, yes, this is according to our standards. This has this much percentage of practical, this much of theoretical, enough hours in this field. So yes, we did that.
So Irene, again, to make the point about the Lieutenant Governor's initiative in this, this is not something that everybody goes out and thinks up. We've got a system, we've got a process. We want to replicate that. Is that right?
That's right, and that's why I like the idea that we're calling this Georgia CAT, and because there's great work going on out there, and y'all are participating in it. Y'all are doing great work-based learning programs. We do a really good job of taking this idea of apprenticeship, and depending on where you are, it has different meaning. Everybody's doing it might be an internship, it might be a summer program, it might be, who knows what it is. It might be where the company registers with the federal government. We don't know what it is, but if you start down this road and you want to do this program, start calling yourself Georgia CAT. Because Georgia CAT, words mean things, and Georgia CAT means that you're implementing the German model where your student will get a German certification at the conclusion of it, in addition to their high school diploma and the technical college certificates or diploma program or associate degree that goes along with it. But that's what Georgia CAT means. If you're not wanting to do the full-fledged Georgia CAT, then make sure you call yourself an apprenticeship or an internship or a whatever it is you want to call yourself. And don't take that as if you're not doing great work, because I know that you are, or other work-based learning. And this truly is taking work-based learning and putting it on steroids, and really reinventing that mindset. And I agree with Steve at the beginning. I think that if you can't just start this cold turkey, you really, really have to have a great work-based learning program already going. Your employers who are coming to the table to doing the training really need to understand what they're doing. And understand that they're responsible for 75% of the instruction of those students. You really need to have a college and career academy that already gets that partnership between your secondary, post-secondary, and your not turf garden and all that kind of stuff. So it truly is a consortium, and it takes a consortium, and everybody's got to be equal partners at the table in the consortium.
Great, great. Let's take to the next slide.
Yeah. So what has been accomplished, German American Chamber of Commerce helped provide the translated curriculum. That was very important to us to take that. And of course, at the end, we'll certify the students if they pass the test. And the test, again, is mostly the practical part. It's not, a multiple choice test or something. The Technical College System of Georgia helped develop the program for the industrial mechanic, and West Georgia Technical College will provide the dual enrollment level for that. The students will earn certificates or diplomas, and if all criteria are met, even an associate's degree. I'll get to that later on. We as an industry, as the consortium, agreed that if the student didn't get his associate degree by the end of the 3 years, we'll help him to get that within reasonable time after that. Further on, the CEC, the Central Education Center, will be the primary support mechanism for this for the students as the place they go to school, and they will handle the apprenticeship program as the work-based learning system is already in place. They have a lot of experience with that. The industry, all the industry partners I mentioned before work together already with the CEC and have students in work-based learning programs. So they have experience with that. That really helps in this system, of course. They will track the educational system. Everything that Dr. Steve Humphrey just said will happen here at CEC, and of course provide information for students and parents, assist in enrolling, and will more or less help guide the student through the program, help them to succeed with it.
Martin, as we went through the selection process and went through the interviews, how involved were the parents in this?
Another German part of the program, the parents, because you were talking about 14, 15-year-old students, talents later on, have to be on the table. They have to be involved in the whole process. Actually, what we started early on, drumming this together. We started with arena shows. That's what's going on every year in the high schools here in Coweta County, where CEC with all the different programs show up for a job fair, actually. We got a booth there and hope to spur some interest with potential students that will go into that program. And we held, after this arena shows, we held at all 3 high schools. We had more or less an information afternoon where industry came and talked a little bit more about the industrial mechanic program. And all students that were interested could register, more or less sign up for that with their counselors. And that's when the parents would get involved, because we told them, please take this application for this program home and discuss it with your parent. You're 15, you're 16 years old. We want to make sure your parents are on board. It's very important for the success of the program. It's not something that we can carry out without the parents, because it's still part of the education program. And as that's, for the interviews, we invited the parents too. So that all the parents of the students that we interviewed for the program were with the interview. Of course, we sent them out during the interview, gave them a shop tour, a company tour, but it's important because there will not always be good days. There will be bad days. The student will come home probably cursing about the program, being really unhappy, like everybody else from us working will have too. And that's where we need the support of the parent. The parent must be, or the parents must be standing behind that and say, look, that's what I have to go through every day at work too, and that's part of life. Sorry, that's another lesson you have to learn, and maybe something comes up that really didn't work well. Maybe there was really an issue with the educator at the workplace. So it's important to have this connection with the parent. So the parent could pick up the phone, call me, or call my educator, call my HR person, and say, hey, I don't think that was fair treatment, or something is wrong here. On the other hand, we can do the same. We see, you know, something going on with the student that we don't like. We can call the parent too. And it's not just that, you know, we complain. It's also about the good things. We want to keep this relationship so that the program has success. Because only with bringing all the parties together, it's the school, it's the student, it's the educator, but it's also the parent, the whole program can be successful with that mix.
So who made the selection of students? Was it the school or was it the company?
Oh, it was the interview process at the company. All the companies interviewed a couple different. We had at Grenzebach 4 that came, and we picked one out of the 4. Okay. We had a hard choice between number 1 and 2, but there was number 3 and 4 that stood out in front of 1 and 2. So it was a regular interview process, and they had to, you know, stand tough questions as much as you can stand. And we were really surprised how prepared these students were, because the one we picked, and let's just elaborate on this student, he came with a CV. Of course, it's a CV of a high school student, but he had a CV prepared in a folder. He was dressed in a tie. He came with proper attire. He was polite, and he was ready to take on our tough questions. Very, you know, adult. And what made us choose him was that, of course, we had questions about what's your practical experience with, how do you like using your hands working on something? And he said he has a lawn mowing business. And we asked, well, lawn mowing business? Yeah, elaborate a little bit. And he set this up by himself, of course, with the help of his dad. And we asked him, so where's the mechanical experience coming from? Yeah, I repair my lawnmower. He said, so tell us a little more. Yeah, if something breaks, I take it apart. So even the engine of the lawnmower, he took apart, you know, repaired parts in the engine, put it back together. And that's where he said, that's our perfect candidate. On the other hand, he brought his compass test, because to get into the program, you have to pass the compass test, because you will go to college, actually, in 10th grade. He had, I'm not sure, it's going to 100 points, the compass test?
Yeah.
He had really high grades, and we were really amazed that with all this practical experience, he had so high grades in the compass test. Because in the beginning we set out and said, we don't want the A+ student, because the student will most likely go to college anyways. We don't want to have the D student, because he's probably lazy and doesn't know what to do in life. We want to have everything in between. And we got a really good one, and we're really looking forward to having this student as an apprentice and, you know, developing as a talent at Grenzebach.
Great. Let's move on through the slide.
Let's move on to the next slide. Actually, that shows the curriculum, and we made sure we have about 70% time at the hands-on training. And hands-on training we divided between the West Georgia Technical College labs and the manufacturer. So in 10th grade, they will have one block at the manufacturer. Oh yeah, I didn't mention that. I told the students too, they have to give up their summers for this program. There is no, 2 months off in summer. You have to go through a summer program where you will be at manufacturing and West Georgia Technical College. 11th grade, you will have 2 blocks. 12th grade, you have even 3, maybe 4 blocks. It really depends if you're in track on the associate's degree or not.
So the color coding on the slide is green at West Georgia Technical College, blue at the manufacturer, gold is a high school class, and then there's summer identified specifically in there also.
And I think what is interesting, if you look at the blue and green color, all that is hands-on experience. Yeah. And that's the big important part for us, that hands-on is the focus on this program. You have to understand how to use tools, how to use machinery, and you cannot get that in a classroom sitting in front of a teacher listening to, a lecture there. Well, So again, college classes from West Georgia Technical College in 10th grade already, and the time at the manufacturer is paid. So everything you see in blue there is paid, and you see a dollar amount behind that. We sat together in the consortium and said we want to have some playing field rules here, because we have bigger and smaller companies, Yamaha being probably one of the biggest here, and Grenzebach maybe a smaller one. But we said we don't want that you pay more than we can do, so we said the first year you pay $8, the second year is $10, and the third year it's $12 an hour time spent at manufacturing. So we calculated all that together. The student most likely will earn around $26,000 in that 3 years while he's at high school. And a lot of eyes lit up in the students like, oh, I can buy a new truck for that. We told them, well, you got to pay something to Uncle Sam too, but yeah, you most likely can get a really nice used car for that.
Well, with what Georgia has done in Move On When Ready, they won't be using that $26,000 for college tuition. It's being paid for them.
That's another big plus where the eyes of the parents lit up, because they will save a lot of money in the technical college education that they would have spent. And they get all the skills and training already while they're at high school.
Yeah.
So yeah, the industry consortium, we can go quickly over the next slide. We provided the review of the program. We agreed on hosting an apprentice. Yamaha actually will host 2. We interviewed the students and made offers to the students. Yeah, and here are the companies again: Yamaha, Keisan, EGO, Yokogawa, Kawasaki, Winpack, Groovepin, and Grenzebach.
So we have Grenzebach and EGO, German companies, Yamaha, Yokogawa, KCMA, Japanese companies, Groovepin, Keisan, American companies, Winpack, a Canadian company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very international.
Very international. Yeah.
So on the next slide, we as I mentioned, a couple guidelines that we agreed to. The apprentice are students. So again, they're not your cheap worker. They're there to get trained and educated on a skill. So yes, they will probably have to be shadowing, people in your shop that do work on product, but on the other hand, it's not the main focus of the student to work on a product. So the first 2.5 years, you will most likely not have productivity, as it is referred in manufacturing, out of the student, but you will have a lot more productivity after he's induced into the workforce, after the program hired on. Actually, we'll have this on the next slide. We'll guarantee a job for the student when he's done with the program. Again, must be enrolled in CEC. This is essential. If it's not going through the CEC, we set that out in the very beginning. We will not hire any of the students if it's not going through the CEC.
Why is that?
That is very similar to why we said we want to have the German curriculum. It's the rigor of the quality. It's the knowledge of knowing what is behind the CEC, the structure that they get. The integration in the school system, the integration in the West Georgia Technical College system is seamless with the CEC.
So there's a systematic process for all of this, and each of the players in the process has its own systematic process that has to be there in order for it all to work.
Yes, and if you don't have a CEC, if you don't have a College and Career Academy, I would not recommend starting this program. It's important to have that set up and working, and we couldn't do it without the CEC, and we wouldn't do it without the CEC.
Larry, what are your thoughts about that? You've worked in the Lean Consortium with these companies for 20 years. What do you think about Martin's comments there about the importance of systems and processes that undergird this whole effort?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Really, the secret is the CEC. The relationship that's been built over 16 years here in Coweta County between education and the industry and the economic development organizations in the county. it starts with a trust, because basically when you think about it, we've asked the employers, many of them, to commit to a program that was not fully developed or defined. We asked them to commit to a curriculum that they hadn't seen. All of that and their willingness to do it came from the trust that's been built up over years to say, if the CEC is going to sign off on it, if West Georgia Tech is going to sign off on it, it's going to be done well, and all these unknowns are still going to happen. This has been built on a community of openness and teamwork, led by the Development Authority and the Chamber's activities that have allowed industry and education to meet, to understand the challenges, to see how we can work together and to build relationships. And we've had an advantage in that our Lean Consortium, 7 of the 8 companies who've been part of the Lean Consortium, this is an organization that allows the companies to get into each other's plants, to meet each other, to work together, to help each other learn and advance. And so we had some tremendous relationships to build on, but it really starts with that belief that a program of this type can be done well by the CEC, the education community, and that all these questions that we're still figuring out how to make it work, we're going to get there, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it well.
Yeah, let's move on to the next slide. Again, industry guidelines. I mentioned uniform wage scale. That was important to us. 8, 10, and 12 hours, dollars the hour. No benefits, and they had to bring proof of medical insurance. Year of service would be tied to the West Georgia technical curriculum. That would mean also the summers. And on the next slide, you will see what we thought is important, that the time of service accumulation starts with more or less the first year. So if they will be hired, and we hope all that in these companies that we can hire the apprentice after the program, we'll already have 3 years in. And that helps for 401k, that helps for PTO regulations, and all the benefits at the workplace.
So they start at age 18 when they get the full-time offer. They already start with time accumulated in the company.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the students will be subject to the general rules like handbooks and other regulations, of course. And of course, we will endeavor to offer them a job. That's the target of the whole program. We want to hire them, and we want to generate a pipeline of these talents. And, looking out 4, 5, 10 years, of course, there's only a limited amount of students I can hire on. I mentioned, my aging workforce. If I have replenished that, I will probably not be able to hire more on. But I don't have a problem filling the pipeline for the county, for the state, because I know when I need someone later on, because there is always people coming and leaving. If I look for this degree in Georgia CAT, I know what I hire. I exactly know what the training was, and I know the quality standards. And the other thing is, the best engineers in our company went through an apprenticeship program. So I do not have a problem if a student, after the program, I'm working a couple of years, that's pretty important, decides to move on and further his education and become an engineer. I think I would be stupid not to hire this engineer, because he would be the better one. He would understand how to build, how to design the machine even better, because he worked on the machine. He worked, with the metal. He worked with the tools. So there's all different kinds of career opportunities that I can see 10 years out from now, from students going still through the program.
And he or she, and we do have young women in this first cohort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, we also agreed to cover the tuition if there is something remaining for the associate's degree. I think it's important. A lot of parents are still in the mindset that without a college degree, you cannot have a career. So we made sure they have a college degree, and they will have a career. There's no question about that. But this is more or less for the ease of mind of the parents, but also to make it easier later on for the student to advance their career as a bachelor or a master if they already have the associate degree. So I'm pretty sure you have some questions, because that would be the end of my presentation here.
Yeah. Do you guys have any comments we want to be sure to make before we go to questions? Yeah.
I do. Thank you very much. And I'm going to put Larry on the spot and make him answer some questions before we throw it out to you guys, because I don't know that we've really gotten in depth on what the Georgia Manufacturing Extension Partnership really brought to the table for this consortium to work. So let me brag a little bit about Georgia Tech and the what do you call it, GMEP? I don't even know what you call it.
Yeah, Georgia MEP.
Yeah, Georgia MEP. Well, number one, there's a Larry in every part of the state. So there is a counterpart of his that I'm confident he will help you find in your area to be part of your consortium. And I think they are critical to being part of the consortium and the success of putting all this together. Larry really was the glue that brought the industry together, I think, and gave them not only the fact that the CEC was at the table, but also Georgia Tech supporting them. I thought that was critical for their comfort level of being with us. Larry and Georgia Tech also had brought to the table an expertise around OSHA and child labor laws. And they have a young workers program at Georgia Tech that is giving their advice and assistance in making sure that we work through those details and get rid of those stumbling blocks for any companies that are out there. So Larry, talk a little bit more about what Georgia MEP does and how they find their version of Larry.
All right. Well, hopefully many of you know your region manager, but if you don't, I can certainly help you. We're a statewide organization focused on helping manufacturers grow and be more competitive and productive, and that's pretty broad-based, but it's all based on the idea that through a focus on innovation and productivity and continuous improvement, all manufacturers can grow and progress. And so our role is to get out and to know, especially the small and medium manufacturers all across the state of Georgia. And we have a lean consortium in 9 other locations as well. And so we do have some relationships that hopefully can add to the relationships you all already have, to help get the people to the table and help them discuss the opportunities that exist. Many of you may have already been in a meeting with a manufacturer and they say, well, nobody under 18 can work in manufacturing. Well, that's true unless you're in an apprenticeship program or an approved work-based learning program, and they certainly can. There just happen to be some rules that you have to follow and manage as part of that relationship. And that's if you haven't already found Child Labor Bulletin 101 from the Department of Labor, I'd encourage you to get it and start reading it. It can be daunting in some ways because of all what appear to be limitations, and there certainly are some, like we can't drive a forklift, right, until we get to be 18. You can't work a student under 18 in an area where there's explosives. So there are some things you can't do. But most things you can do with proper training, proper supervision, and with limitation of exposure. And so our Young Worker Safety Program is available to work with companies to help them understand the rules that they have to follow, help them understand what equipment they can and can't operate, even if necessary, come out and visit with somebody to walk the floor and say, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. But most people who are really want to be part of the program can find a way to do it and do it within the regulations.
And Larry, you actually had Jenny Holrood come out and she's walked through some of these companies to say, you can't do this, you can do that.
Right, exactly right. So that's what we really want to focus on with the companies, is what you can do, because everybody tends to get fixated on what you can't do. But you can really do more than many people understand. We have one little area that we're still working with wage and hour on, and that is if you read their regulations, they say quite bluntly that no one under 16 can work in a manufacturer. And really, I think it's a dispute about what is work and what is education. And so Roy is going to be helping us try to get some meetings with the proper people to try to hopefully build some additional flexibility to allow the 15-year-olds to participate. And we're hopeful that'll happen pretty quick.
Yeah, Roy, we are a little bit baffled that the same curriculum that we will teach in this program to a 15-year-old, we could teach at most any other facility anywhere except a manufacturer. We can't understand why there is that, I'll say it, discrimination against manufacturing. I hope somebody can help us one day understand that. We appreciate your work on that. Other comments? Steffi, you're talking to head office in Germany about this. You've had York Sievers here, who's on point for these programs worldwide for DIHK. What's the thinking in Germany? What's the thinking with other of your colleagues who work in German government? What do people think about this?
About the U.S. putting on these programs?
Yes.
I was actually just, I'm not going to name the company, but I was in South Carolina last week at a very large German manufacturing plant, and the head of the plant is actually South African. Nonetheless, he wants to put in these training programs, and he said his hardest battles with Germany are why he has such a turnover and why he can't find workforce. He said he had about, and we're talking 1,000 plus people. He said about 15% of his workforce just this year he had to turn over because of non-productivity. And he said Germany comes back to, you live in a first world country. We're not talking Africa or Latin America. Mexico has better apprenticeship programs than the U.S. They just, he's, they're baffled how, these programs don't exist at this point. But again, Germany is on par and on board with supporting us with anything we need. There are about 40 countries or locations that we have worldwide right now where the local German Foreign Chamber is assisting in these programs in Argentina, in Chile, in China, and Canada. I know about all of my counterparts in these 40 countries. We come together once a year, talk about our challenges. And we have this whole system behind us. Again, I'm a lawyer by profession. I don't know if Martin needs that machine or not, or if enough hours are spent on that, or if that's an old machine, or I don't know. But I have the system behind me that I can pull resources from in every direction. Just the local chambers, the local chamber that they're working with at their headquarters called me prior to Governor Deal's visit and said, can you tell me even more about the program so we're prepared when the governor gets here. So these relationships are so close. And again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's so much out there. It has to be adapted a little bit always, for the needs. But why not copy it and do the best you can? It's not bringing the German system here. It's about, taking what's out there, translating it, and, adapting it to your system. There are wonderful schools here. We're certainly not going to start building vocational schools. Again, it's set up a little different in Germany, but it works here, and I can tell you 3 years from now when we're going to graduate these students, we're going to get even more press echo nationwide than we've already had. After this press release, I had daily emails, and not only from Georgia, across the U.S., of, inquiries of how we set this up.
That's probably a great way to end this segment. Why don't we take about a 10-minute break, and then let's come back for some questions. Steve Cromer, before we start with questions, you, I think, wanted to make a comment specifically for our technical colleges in the audience.
Yeah, I was just mentioning to Mark during the break that for the TCSG system colleges, don't think that you have to change the TCSG standards to go along with the German apprenticeship program. They're really interwoven, and the German apprenticeship curriculum is an add-on. I see it as value added and it gives the instructor and the companies a very useful tool to help in the evaluative process and in the training process of the students. So don't think you have to change the curriculum. You use the same courses, same course numbers, same standards, same number of hours. So none of that changes. This is just an added tool to help through that process.
So Steve, to clarify, what we had to do was we had to get TCSG, we had to get Cindy McGowan, we had to get others to take all the German standards from all the German curriculum, lay it side by side with what we already have in technical college, make sure that if the standards were not covered, that there was additional German curriculum that could be taught at the manufacturing site that could cover those standards. So while there is not a change in the course numbers, and while it is, from our perspective, additive to existing technical college curriculum, all that work had to be done to make sure that what existed really did exist in sync with the German requirements, the competencies taught.
Yeah. And once Steffi got it converted to English for us, we could really understand it. And really, if you read through the material, what the German system is teaching and what we're teaching at TCSG is the same material. The approach is what's different. We're all teaching about the same belts and same chains and same motors. They all work by the same principles. It's just the approach is so much different. So we're using our curriculum, some of the curriculum that's in the German program, but the approach is what makes it, in my view, so much more effective and relevant to our students.
All right, I think, Laura, I think we have some microphones, okay? And what questions do you have? If you'll raise your hand, we'll get a microphone to you. If you'd tell us your name and your organization and your question.
Greg Wilson, the Carl Vinson Institute. Mark, how are you guys handling transportation, or is that on the students to get to the manufacturing sites?
Yeah, that's going to be handled in a number of different ways. It's going to be handled via some collaboration with vans provided by West Georgia Tech and drivers paid for by the Coweta County school system. It's also going to be handled by school buses that will help in some of that transportation. There's a variety of means there. And Greg, the background to your question, you may or may not know that Coweta County school system has been busing students to and from this facility for the 16, soon to be 17 years of our existence. So there's already been adjustments made in local busing to accommodate people who come here. And what we'll do is make some additional accommodations out from here to manufacturers and to other campus sites for West Georgia Tech. We have tried to make sure that it is not a barrier. That's one of the early things that we did, was to try to think through the ideas of barriers that a 15-year-old would have. Transportation right at the top of the list. Gotten great support and collaboration between the college and the school system to help eliminate that.
Glenn County, 2015 host Lieutenant Governor Summit, by the way. Also, will all your students who apply for the apprenticeship program and who actually get accepted after the interview process, will they have actually been involved or been out to CEC before that process happens? Or are some of them touched just at the local high schools, then they'll be part of the CEC network once they're accepted?
Yeah, so most all have been here, Rick. Not all of them have taken classes here in their freshman year of high school. So we have introduced the CEC system to them in various ways. Some already are aware of it, some we've had to introduce. Yeah, a good question. So part of your question might be, Must a student have walked on the campus of CEC for a semester to be a part of this program? The answer is no. You can introduce the system to them as long as you keep the standards very, very high. Yeah. Our ninth graders in our high schools are ready for this. Yeah. And your name again?
Plan in Albany.
Okay.
And you talked about on the first 2 years it's a learning-based program. So what is the expectation at the manufacturing? Do you have to have certain elements of teaching? Do they need to be, I guess, qualified to teach from this program, or is it they're learning what we would do at our plant?
So the student will have to go through the curriculum that is set by the German-American Chamber. It's actually very structured. The first year, for example, they're only working with hand tools like a saw, a hammer, a file. They will not touch power tools in their first year anyways. That's not part of the program. And then the next steps are getting into welding, getting into more machining, mill, lathe, and it get more working with more automatic machines later in the years. So you get introduced to the topic metal first. Metal is the core of it, forming, shaping metal. And then, reading blueprints, pneumatics, some electrical basics are part of the program in general. So the expectation is that we will be able to handle a couple of projects. Actually, the company that provides the books, it's a German company, English books, also provides projects in the first, second, and third year that you can work on. And of course, they're easier in the first year, and they're more complex in the third year. In the third year, I saw in our plant in Germany, they built like a small car out of metal, and they had to build all the single parts first, and then put the whole thing together. In the first year, it will be more or less something easier, just 2-3 pieces they put together.
So Martin, the trainer at your company, the mentor at your company, what process did you go through to hire that person or identify that person? And what process do you go through to make sure that person is ready to teach these apprentices at your site?
So we tried to hire an external person, ideally somebody that went through the training and didn't have luck yet. So we decided on, I think, one of the most experienced assembly persons in our shop that worked in all the different areas before. He worked in machining, he worked on welding, so he can teach the young student in the different areas. And we will more or less give him time, so we'll plan his productive time less than we normally would do, where he has time to work with the student on the different projects and show him, how you use the tools, how you get the skills of it. And what we will do with all the companies, we'll bring all the trainers together. They will have regular meetings, exchange ideas, and West Georgia Technical College will set up, according to the German Train the Trainer program, a training session for these trainers in the different companies, so they're all at the same page. They all know this is the expectations that we have from you as a trainer, because they will work with 15-year-olds. So it's a little different than working with your, adult 20, 25, 30-year-old person. It's a lot different, and you have to, teach that to our trainers in the different companies. And West Georgia Technical College, we chose them because we said they will have trainers for the part of their program, and we want to make sure that they all work together, they all know each other. So if there's issues, if there's problems, they can all talk together and figure out how to solve it, and that they're all again on the same page on how to convey the knowledge and how to convey the skills that are required according to the curriculum.
So in a slight departure from the German system, where the only person who does technical training is at the company, here we've got technical college instructors doing technical training and someone at the company. So we got to make sure there's collaboration between those also. Other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, good afternoon, Dr. Whitlock. Sinitra Haywood, Glenn County Schools. I had a question relative to at the beginning, Dr. Whitlock, you mentioned that your local industry selected the industrial mechanics as the area for your students for apprenticeship. Could you talk to us a little bit about that process in terms of how that area was selected? And also, are there other industry areas and curriculum that's available so that if other systems moving forward were to select to go in this direction, that they had that option in terms of having their curriculum translated from German to English?
I'll let Steffi answer the second one. I'm going to
Okay.
let Martin answer the first one about how and Larry, about how companies came together to really pick industrial mechanics. But Steffi, 353 occupational areas?
350.
350 occupational areas. Industrial mechanics is one?
One.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's industrial mechanics in this field, this field, this field, this
Yeah.
field. That might be 7 or 8.
So
I don't know
industrial
who grabbed the
mechanics across,
100-page one, but that has
Yeah.
7, 8 different majors in it.
So if somebody wanted to look at the curriculum for another industry, how do they get that?
Yeah, I was actually going to talk to you during the break about that, which we didn't get to. You know, there were a lot of people that approached me about where they can find the curriculum, the ones that are at least translated. All 350 are publicly available, but only a portion of it at this point is translated either to English and or Spanish. I do have a website link that I can send. People have asked about the presentation, so I don't know if we're going to designate an area on your website or if we have a mailing list or how to do that.
Yeah. Why don't we, can we designate an area at a Georgia CATT site?
We don't have the Georgia CAT. Oh, the one we don't.
Yeah, you're right. Sure.
Oh, that one. Yes, we can.
Can we do that?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
How about, why don't we volunteer Irene, and that anybody in the room email Irene, and
Okay.
she'll be the coordinator to get in the meantime of what folks need. Because I
Okay.
know Henry County was looking at a couple of 3 other, honestly, we don't want to overwhelm the technical college system of Georgia in piecemealing this. That's almost, we need to be real strategic about it. And so much of the work has already been done. It was at least a year's worth of work going back. I'm looking at my friends back there with West Georgia, my other friends over there. I mean, that was not an easy thing to do. So we can't just like that make that happen. But I think that coordinated, especially through Georgia CAN, our college and career academies, we can at least choose 1 or 2 or 3 other ones that make sense for, 2 or 3 academies, and not overwhelm as we walk down the road. I know that there's a lot of friends here from the automotive industry who is looking right now to go ahead, and I think we're already looking at, from West Georgia's perspective, doing that hard work on that automotive curriculum. It is so that's coming down the pike, so you might want to be looking at that. And then for sure, what we would love, if you have an interest in an area, maybe Golden Isles, to choose that one, then maybe with the partnership of the technical college and your actual technical college, you guys can be the guinea pig on that curriculum and work out the details around that curriculum and become the expert if you're not going to do industrial mechanics.
Because we're looking into logistics and healthcare. But logistics, probably 2017, and healthcare.
Or others,
After.
what about other states?
Those are actually 2 of the main locations they're looking into. IT,
Yeah.
Chicago is starting an IT consortium. I mean, on our website, there is a link to the downloadable curricula that are translated. So I can't can I type somewhere? Can I type on that presentation? Do we have like my email?
Your email, why don't you,
Where's that computer that it's running from?
yeah, is there a way she can type that on the screen, Laura, to add to the PowerPoint so people can pick that up, and so we can pick it up in the video?
And I'm happy, if any questions y'all want to funnel through me, we'll make sure you get your answers.
So let's type Steffi's email in, and let's type Irene's email in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to answer the question about the industrial mechanic, why we took this one, actually, I looked into the different curriculum, and industrial mechanic was the one that fitted our needs most. So what I did after, more or less, I selfishly decided Grenzebach will go with industrial mechanic. I asked the other German company here in the county, EGO, if they wanted to do that, and just finding out that they have also an industrial mechanic training as we do in Germany, so they were very familiar with what it entails. And of course, David Keller, he's the CEO and president here, he was on board right away, said, sure, we will do that, we will be part of that. And actually, David pushed really hard to get more companies on board, and worked with Larry and the Lean Consortium, because we're both part of that. And with that, we found the other 6 companies that joined the bandwagon.
I know the founder of Grenzebach, Mr. Rudolf Grenzebach, was here for celebrations last year, and talked about how the company, when they first came to Coweta, was trying to get American companies involved in this kind of effort, and they just didn't join in. I think now the need is so great, and the relationships among companies so much better. I think the timing is just right.
And I'll add to that, Mark, that while we have 8 companies in year 1, we have at least 4 who've said they're committed to being part of the program. They just didn't want to do it in year 1. So we expect in the future years to have more join in.
Great. Other questions? Senator Weber had one over here, I know. Yeah.
I have a question about the cost benefit analysis. If I'm a decision maker at an American-based company that has no experience with this type of thing, you come to me and say, do you want to do this? I might come back and say, I have a management team that wants it quantified. Why are we going to invest this kind of money and resources in these young people when we don't know that they'll stay at the company? And are there studies that have been done? How do you persuade companies to do that? Or is it a no-brainer that anybody should see that this makes sense?
Well, I don't know that it's a no-brainer, certainly. I think the greatest factor in why so many people were willing to do it in year 1 is they see not only the tremendous need, it's pretty urgent for most companies that they have to find a way to start filling this pipeline. And this is not a new need. We've been hearing this for years. And so many companies have gone out either on their own to try to set up their own kind of training program. They've recognized that they have to be more engaged, more than just complaining and hoping somebody's going to find some pipeline of candidates for them. So I think everybody's at a point, or so many are at a point to say, we got to do something. And what are their alternatives? You know, either do it themselves, and certainly for only the largest companies probably could they really do their own program. So having something of this stature and this quality available, I think people were willing. And again, I would never underestimate, I think the key is the relationship and the trust factor that they have with the CC here in Noonan, that even though they can't understand all the aspects of the program, they're willing to jump in and recognize that if we all do it, you know, that there will be an increasing pipeline. You know, in the first year, you'd think about, well, there's 9 students, but this is intended to continue year after year after year after year. And so at some level, 10 years in, you know, I know Amanda and we're going to bring in some new industry with greater needs. But at some level, we may be exporting industrial mechanics, and that'll be okay. Because it's something that industry, I think, is just understanding they've got to be engaged in. It's really got to be a partnership of industry and education.
So coming back to your ROI question, if you have your American team sitting around the table, I would ask them how much they spend now for hiring and training people, what is the turnover rate, and take that expense and compare it. I mean, just a one-to-one comparison. I'll bring one welder in, let's say a temp that I want to hire, a temp to hire, something like this. I have a certain cost. It's definitely more than 8 hours or 12 hours an hour. I'll have to pay him at least 14, 15 in this area, maybe in other areas even 20 or more. So that's the immediate cost you will have. Then to train this temp that doesn't have too much experience in your equipment, you have to give him a mentor, a trainer from your company that will spend some of his productive time with him. So you'll have to take that productive hours off of this person and add it. So if you add these costs, the productive time I take off from my trainer for the apprentice is probably the same like I would use for a temp. It's just a different quality. Yes, you have to work differently with an adult than you have to work with a 15-year-old. But as working so closely with the college and CEC here, a lot of that basic training is done here, so I can build on a lot of things already. The other thing is with the turnover rate. I think that's the most important part. I think we'll bring it down significantly because you have, that's why I said I want to have them earlier, you have more time to shape the young person into what you want him. You have more time to expose him to your culture, and he will be more accepting to your culture than an adult. We, in our company, we made a lot of bad experiences hiring temps. Actually, I think I only have 1 or 2 temps that started as temps. All the others I had let to go. It didn't work out. They were so set in their minds and so set in their ways, I couldn't change that. And if you add all this cost and maybe quality issues, bad product, that you will not have with a really good trained apprentice, I think the numbers really work out in the favor of this program.
And I want to ask Steffi to weigh in. I know one of the things we're excited about having it as a high school-based program is the fact that these curriculum costs would be part of their school rather than being borne by the companies. So if they were to have waited, as some states have, to engage the apprentices at 18, how much more in the curriculum costs would transfer to the company where in our program they're covered?
Well, they're the ones that I, consult, they pay tuition for the college. So they at least have 8,000 to 10,000, books and everything right there. That's per student.
Per student per year?
Yeah.
Where that's covered as part of our program.
Exactly. Yeah. There is a study that I have on, it's compared in Germany, but new hires and what an apprentice and productivity and cost are compared. So if you email me, I'll send that. You specifically have to say you want that too, and I'll email it to you.
Don't forget that these are Senate Bill 2 kids, so you're counting the kids at the high school level. You're getting the FTE for it. The college is getting the Move On When Ready FTE for that student. So everybody's collecting money for the 6 segments of the kids on your camp, or not on your campus, but you're still counting those kids for as your graduate.
Hi, Mercy Montgomery with the Carl Vinson Institute. Speaking about a couple points you made just a few minutes ago and the concerns about aging workforce, can you share a little bit about mentorship, whether formal or informal, that's built into the program and how you see that affecting organizational culture going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So the mentorship is very important. I think the better mentor we can put aside for the student, the better result we'll have. The way we chose our mentor, our trainer, was also he's, let's say, more in the younger crowd. He has himself kids, so he knows how to handle and treat young people. This was all important to deliver a result that we expect. And of course, the training will set up the more formal one with the technical college system will even further that basic program there.
Martin, could you expand on that? Talk a little bit about Cooper and the kind of culture that developed over time with his trainer, mentor, the kinds of things that happened in your company as you saw that 16-year-old welder begin to, over time, be accepted by a much older workforce.
What was very interesting, I was approached by one of our master welders. He said, why don't you bring in a welder? Because I'm welding more than 30 years and I will retire soon. I think at that time it was like early 50s, and said, I'd like to train somebody. And that's how we got to say, okay, let's open this position as welder, and because you need to have the trainer, the mindset right from the beginning. You don't throw the young person in there and hopefully somebody will pick it up. You have to have more or less the person standing up, yes, I'm willing to do this, yes, I want to do that. And of course there's good days and bad days. So, bad days are the young student, 16-year-old, playing with his smartphone instead of asking for more work, really agitated my guys there. It's like, you're here to work, if you're done with the part you weld, you come out and ask for more, and you don't sit in the corner and play with your smartphone. So this is a cultural change for both. For the young student to understand it's not time to play with your phone, it's time to work here. On the other hand, for the trainers to understand, they have to treat them differently. They have to foresee that more. So now we told them, don't even bring your phone. It does. And that helped over the years to foster a relationship between the two. And I mentioned earlier that we sent Cooper. Cooper is this young student that is now an employee, and that passed so well all the tests that we put in front of him, going to work in Germany because they're totally swamped in the welding department, and they would hire temps. And I spoke with the production manager there and said, we're not super busy right now. Why don't you take 2 of my employees? And he agreed to that, and Cooper will be one and his trainer the other one. So they will have even more bonding time. They will understand, how the German mastership is doing stuff, but and maybe they can teach them something.
And Cooper can drink beer in Germany.
Yep.
So in terms of the hiring decision for Cooper, did you see the mindset change in that trainer over time? Early on, was he interested in hiring? As time developed, was he more interested in hiring?
Actually, there was a point, probably half a year before we had to make a decision to hire him or not, when the shop foreman came and was not really happy, complained really badly about Cooper, said his attitude is not right. Again, like he is playing with his phone, he's not pushing to ask for more work. And he said, Martin, I will treat him like everybody else here in the shop. I will not babysit him, and he has to step up his game. I think, and I know that he spoke with his trainer too about this, and they both somehow worked it out, because when the decision point came and I put the decision in front of the shop supervisor, because I told him, you have to work with him. I would love to hire him, but you have to work with him every day. So I will not tell him to hire him, you tell me. And he said, let me think about it. He came back and said, let's hire him. You know why? Because yes, I still have to work on him. There is things he has to change and so on. But if we would hire somebody else, it would be even harder. And I'm not sure if I would get him there. And with him, I know I can get him there. So that was an important decision part when hiring Cooper. And again, I made sure that the shop guys are okay with that, and not me pushing that in, because I'd like to support the program. I want to make sure this is successful.
So Martin, is this one of the reasons you've been so adamant about let's start this at 15 and let's grow these folks? Is it because that culture can develop, and it can really only develop when the person is young and you're able to teach them and train them and change them?
Yeah. Well, just remember back when you were 15,
It's been a long time.
But you didn't think, like you're 18, you think you can do everything, and you can do everything better than everybody else. But when you're 15, you're still, still listen to someone that is like 50 years old and tells you, look, son, that's how we bow. This is how we do. When you're 18, like, let me do it. I know this much better. This is and this helps to, the younger I get them, the younger, the more exposure they have to grow into the culture of the company culture and, the work attitude. And that's where, again, I have to come back and say, you have to go through the CEC, because part of the CEC grades is attendance. And we had a lot of issues with temps that we hired that didn't show up. And we have a absolutely clear rule: if a temp doesn't show up, doesn't call the foreman, he's out. There is no question, whatever happened. Of course, there issues can happen, there can be accidents, but you can call the foreman and tell him, I can't come, I had this and this. And that's okay. But if you don't show up for work, you're out. And we never ever had an issue with the CEC student, including Cooper, not showing up to work on time and, putting in his time. So I think that's an important part that is already pre-learned if you have the CEC student. That is very important for, a social skill that you definitely need to be successful in your work life.
So the emphasis on work ethic that the CEC board mandates is something that's helpful.
Yes, it's actually key because, again, going back to what my foreman tells me, Martin, he says, I can live with, not being knowledgeable, I can train them, but when you're not on time, the whole team suffers, because we have a plan how to build parts and how to build machines, and if somebody doesn't show up, we cannot execute the plan, because we planned with you being there to do your task.
Larry, is that why we hear so much more today from companies about work ethic? Is it that lean approach to manufacturing where everybody's relying on somebody else and there's really no backup?
No, I agree. Everything's, I like to think of it as reliability based. I mean, Martin can testify that what is acceptable today in industry from your competitors is so much higher of an expectation, delivery, quality. You just can't afford to be loose in any aspect of your business. And being on time is the most fundamental thing of all. To be able to be there, ready to work at the beginning of the shift or the day is just incredibly critical. And I think we'd all recognize all organizations really are trying to do more with less. And so the level of responsibility that is there for each employee is much higher than maybe ever.
And Martin, all work today in manufacturing is project work, right?
Yes.
It's not just making widgets one after the other.
Not at all. You have to be able to solve complex problems. You have to think about new ways to work more efficient, because you will given less time to accomplish a task, and the quality still has to be outstanding. So yeah, it's definitely a project-based work environment.
Other questions? I see no other questions.
Can I get you to answer a question? If I was in their shoes, what would I do next?
What would I do next? I would find my technical college. I would find my Georgia Tech MEP. I would get my College and Career Academy board. I would find my development authority, my chamber. I would get together and I would make a call to Steffi Julichka and say, we're all here, where are you? Because the first thing you've got to do is align people.
Right.
The first thing you've got to do is make sure that all who are needed are aligned and at the table, and that they're in an organizational structure that doesn't allow them to get up and leave the table, to be honest. They all have to buy in.
Can I add to that?
Please.
And I would, after you get that exact group together, if you don't know who those people are, email Irene and she'll find those people for you and get them at the table for you. And then I would also make a phone call to Kenny Adkins with the Technical College System of Georgia, and then let Kenny and or Joe Dan Banker come and by phone or in person sit in on a meeting with you guys. There's a lot going on and they're busy, so they can join by phone. You don't have to have them there, but the technical college, those two individuals definitely will assist in empowering you technical college out there. You have to do all the work, technical college, wonderful people, but it's really important that you are empowered by the technical college system office to break down barriers that they need you to accomplish. So call Kenny or Joe Dan, well, really Kenny. And then if you can't find any of those people or know who those are, always email Irene. And no matter what, email Irene, because I want to know that you're serious about doing Georgia CAT so that the Lieutenant Governor's office and the Lieutenant Governor himself can fully support your efforts.
Now, all that presupposes that at your college and career academy, you've got a technical college president and a school system superintendent and economic development folks and business and industry folks who are accustomed to working together.
Right.
Because they're going to work together more closely than you can ever imagine when you start getting into something like this. So those are prerequisites even before you align all the players for this particular effort. All right. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Laura, Jake, and broadcast video interns, thank you all for your help with this. Appreciate it.